I became a millionaire at 34 by copying what smart, rich people do. And this series is about breaking down what their lifestyle and financial habits are so you can copy them too. One of the problems that we run into whenever we're looking at the lifestyles and habits of millionaires is that there is so much data that is still talked about today, but it's older than my dial-up internet speed when I was trying to connect to AOL. Yeah, a lot of you don't even know what that is. That's how old it is. So this series is dissecting new data that is coming out from a group that is exclusive for millionaires called Hampton. And for this part of the series, we're going to be looking at how these millionaires are earning and investing their money. Okay, so this is a very detailed look into the wealth allocation of how these people are earning and investing their money. Now remember, the majority of this demographic, 58% of them are in between the ages of 30 and 50 years old. So they're still relatively young. And also this group does skew more towards the entrepreneurial side. But that makes a lot of sense because other data shows that 95% of anyone who has over a $5 million net worth owns their own business. So, while there are going to be a lot of people who make a lot of money in real estate, it's still going to skew towards having your own business. So let's jump into this here. There is a lot to pull from this, a lot of information here. It's awesome. So the first thing that really jumps out is that regardless of the net worth that you see on here, and you can see this over here, the self-reported net worth of these people, about 40% on average, that's a rough estimate, especially if we're taking out the person who's less than $1 million. If we look at this, about 40% on average is in personal company stock. So whatever their equity is in the business or businesses that they own, that is how the majority of these people have made their money. So the thing that I find interesting is that for the rest of them, the majority have about 20% of their money in public stocks and bonds, which you can see right here. Now, when you think about that though, if we take out the 40% that we know is wrapped up, this isn't like a pile of money that's sitting Scrooge McDuck style in a safe somewhere, that they can just jump into. That's just wrapped up in the valuation of their business. So, they can't spend that and buy groceries with it. So when it comes down to just the cash that they do have, that 20% divided by about the 60% remaining of their cash, that means that they're putting about 1/3 of the money that they do have on hand into stocks and bonds. So I think that's something really interesting to see, that about a little over 30% of everything that they have is going into the stock market or some type of bond market. So that's a really interesting insight right there. The other thing, I don't think this is surprising anybody, but the next leading category here is going to be real estate. So we have investment real estate right here, and then their primary residence. So some of these people have really nice houses, good for them, or couple houses, whatever it may be. But then when it comes to investment real estate here, they've got some, but not a lot. The reason I think that's really interesting is I was listening to a podcast with Noah Kagan. He's worth about $50 million. He owns a company that builds software for startups and different things like that. And he's doing really well for himself. And he does a lot of interviewing with high net worth individuals and likes to talk about money and business and things like that. And one of the things that he was just talking about was the fact that anytime he's gone away from his center of genius, and his center of genius is building a certain type of business, tech businesses specifically. He's like, anytime I've gone out and put money into real estate, even if I was like trusting a guy or whatever, he's like, I didn't know that world. Anytime he tried to get into crypto, he's like, other people were made a ton of money in crypto. So I threw a little bit in there. I lost money. He goes, anytime I got away from my center of genius, the thing that I just knew so much about, I normally end up losing money, or I made just a little bit of money. And if I wouldn't have used it on that and put it into what is my center of genius, I would have made way more. And I think that's a huge takeaway, because a lot of times there's a stat that's floating out there. And again, this is another one of those misleading data points about millionaires, but you hear this a lot. They'll say the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. So immediately you go, wow, 7 streams of income. Okay, so stocks, real estate, all these other things. Okay, while that sounds nice, that doesn't mean 7 different types of streams of income. Normally, it's one type of income, but it's 7 different versions of it. So, for instance, it could be real estate, but it's not real estate in stocks and crypto and all that. No, it's just 7 different rental properties. Or if you have stocks, it's 7 different stocks that have all appreciated over time, or whatever the case may be. If it's businesses, it's 7 different income streams from within those businesses that are increasing the valuation of your business. So that's something that's really important. When we think about this, don't think of it as building wealth as, a bush with branches and leaves that are just going everywhere from the ground up. No. To really build wealth quickly, it's more like a palm tree. It's really just doing one thing, staying in that center of genius for a really long time. And then when you get to the top and you've really just got this on absolute lockdown, then you start to diversify it, right? So this just really, again, continues to affirm a lot of the things that I know, that I study in other sources of data that we kind of have out here with how millionaires view building wealth. Okay, so getting back into this. Sorry, I have a whole bunch of notes here. This was chock full of a lot of good stuff. Okay, so then one of the most under-discussed things that you have on here, and oh, by the way, if you take out, to go to that previous point, if you take out the primary residence, the majority of them have 10% or less in investment real estate. So again, they're really sticking with their center of genius, which is business, and then investing in other businesses. So then as we get back to it, like I said, looking at this, the most under-discussed thing on here is going to be my favorite color, which is orange, and that's cash. So I saw Mr. Wonderful speak at the University of Florida years ago, and he's one of the guys on Shark Tank, known for his glowing personality and how nice and soft he comes across. If you know him, you know how much that's a joke that is. But one of the really interesting things that he said was that at all times he is trying to keep anywhere from 15 to 20% of all of his wealth in cash. And it's like, okay, well, why would you do that? Don't you want cash out there and invested working for you? Well, you do, but here's the thing. Whenever you have an economic downturn or a recession, or maybe you're in an industry and all of a sudden, there's a particular business or whatever that's not doing well and things are tanking, whatever it is, if you don't have cash available and it's locked up in a business or real estate, money that's hard to get to, something that's called quick assets, meaning you can't get access to that cash within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to miss a lot of great opportunities. And that's why I think that you see in here that so many of them are so heavily invested in cash. And then if we come down here and we look at this, it says, we ask people how they've changed their allocation recently. The 2 most popular answers were no change, 40%, and moving to more cash. 1 in 5 were going to move to more cash. So already they've got a lot of cash, but look at the economy. We're reaching a tipping point. Everybody's waiting for this recession to hit. We might be in one right now and we're just waiting for the data. We don't know, but we think things are going to get rougher. So what do the wealthy do? The wealthy go to cash because they know in downturns, it's like they say, there's that saying that goes, when there's blood in the streets, buy real estate. Because whenever things are bad, that's when it's the best time to buy assets, because they're going to be cheaper than when things are awesome and everybody's trying to buy. Okay. So yeah, that was just something I thought was really interesting. And like I said, that was a really big part. So then okay, so let's move on to the next one. You can see the average allocation excluding the personal company stock. I think you get it. We kind of went over all that. This is not surprising to me, but there is something that kind of stood out a little bit that I think the average person needs to know. But for me, this wasn't a surprise just from the circles that I run in and really understanding how the millionaire mindset works. One of the most needed, whether they already have it or already want it, advisory services is tax. So you see it right here, accountant or tax specialist. They either have it and want it already, whatever. Everybody's using tax specialists for the most part. Not surprising. Taxes is a whole thing. There's a lot to it. Hire a professional. This is what didn't surprise me that much, but I think might surprise a lot of people. When you look at CFP, Certified Financial Professionals, these are registered investment agents, so a lot of different designations, CFAs or whatever. There's a lot of different ones that go under an RIA. 75% don't want one. 50% don't want a CFP. Family office, this is like for the hyper wealthy, the really elite stuff. They call them family offices. Majority of people don't want it. Right here. Don't want, they want, but they're not really going out and finding it. I mean, these people are wealthy. They have resources. If they want it, they can go get it. And then, less than 30% have them, don't have them, whatever. Advisory services used by them. Again, tax pretty much across the board. Tax specialist. Using a little bit of a CFP here. Some of them are using CFPs. RIAs, family office, again, not that much. Now, when you get to 50 million and above, it does become more popular. Now, again, there's not a lot of respondents in that category. That's only a handful of people responding there, but it makes sense. I think at 50 to 100 million, you probably have an asset size that is just super complicated and time consuming, and it's just no longer worth keeping up on your own. So it's like, I'll just pay the fees. I'll get somebody in here to kind of manage it, and then I'm going to go out and do what I do best, which is make money. So I think it's probably just a time benefit at that point. But if you look at it, 1 to 50 million across the board, people do not really see a lot of value in CFPs, RIAs, and family office. The reason I think that is, this is just my interpretation of that, from knowing a lot of entrepreneurs, from knowing some people who are doing very well, multi-million-dollar net worths. Number one, they like having direct control over their money. Two, because they are so focused on their center of genius, whatever it is, a lot of times when they get extra cash, they just use that to put it back into the things that they already know how to do really well. So one of my favorite shows is Parks and Rec. Hilarious show. And one of my favorite fictional characters of all time is Ron Swanson in there. And if you know anything about him, he's this, anti-government guy that works for the government, hyper masculine, sweet mustache, loves bacon. Hilarious. Well, he's also a really good woodworker. And there's this clip that I've always loved. He's in Home Depot and he's looking at some wood and doing some things. And a Home Depot employee comes up trying to be helpful. He's like, "Hey, sir, is there anything I can help you with today?" And he just looks at him deadpan in the face and goes, "I know more than you." And I love that. And I think that is what is happening here. I think the majority of the time for the people who are at 1 to 50 million, anytime they get money, they're just putting it back into things that they already know so well. They're like, why would I pay somebody else to do this? I have the capacity. I have the desire. I'm just going to invest in myself because that's how I've got to where I am right now. So the reason I think that's important for the 92% of people in America and beyond that are not millionaires, right? 8% of people in the United States are millionaires, 92% are not. For the 92% are not, the reason I think that is so important for you to know is because you need to, number one, know that you need to get really good at one thing. You don't have to be good at a lot of things. You need to be great at one thing. Number two, when you get money, you need to really invest in that thing. Like, go all in on it, bet on yourself. And then number three, I think that once you have built up the habits, the mindset, the systems in order to reach 100,000 and then your first million, I think you're going to realize that you don't need outside help thanks to technology and all these other things. You can set up systems just fine without needing a lot of outside input or help. Now, that being said, there are still people that are here that are using CFPs, right? These people probably recognize the fact that, look, I have an emotional instability or insecurity with money, and it's just going to be better if somebody else is here to check me on that and manage it. That's good. I'm not sitting here saying that to get rich, you do not need a finance professional. I'm saying that you need to know yourself, and it doesn't make it an automatic that you have to have one. Whether or not you have one doesn't probably come down as much to skill with money as it does to emotional stability around money and the things that you do with that. So that's what I have to say about that. And so a lot of stuff here. Number one thing, people want to hire tax specialists. That's the most important thing. I don't think that's surprising. But yeah, that's the breakdown of how these millionaires are earning their wealth and spending their wealth. If you're surprised by any of this, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you're curious about these rich but not famous people and their lifestyle, then watch the next video and we're going to be breaking that down.